there. One of them just being away from, like, when I would get on the phone time, it's really hard. There's only 7 phones where I was, so you only get, like, whenever you're allowed to get phone time, because it's not like a free for all 24/7. You can be on the phones. You have like certain amount of times that you can be on the floor. It's called floor time. So you can be on the floor when the floor is open. So when the floor was open, and I got to the phone, and there was about 80 people in my pod. So it's by pods. So there was 80 dudes in my pod stacked up on bunk beds. So it was really hard to fight for that phone and kind of get that respect in your pod to have that phone time. The phone calls were only 30 minutes each without them like kind of disconnecting, so it's 30 minutes, but it might detect a three-way. It might detect someone speaking next to you might trigger it to like end the call because they think 3 people are on the phone. They cost money, so they're really expensive. The phone calls are not free. The video visits are free. Yeah, you can schedule a video visit, but you're only allowed a certain amount of video visits each week. So when you're on those phone calls, they cost a lot of money. So I kind of felt bad, calling my friends a lot or calling my family a lot, because it's like, damn, like I don't want to run up the bank on their credit card, when I'm just trying to talk, because there's nothing else I can do in there but, kind of go on the phone or kind of journal. I journaled a lot when I was in there. I wrote a lot of stuff. I wrote a lot of...
My grandmother is missing right now.
A few South Park episodes that are really cool. I'm going to do like a kind of type it all out and like do a autobiography, because no one has time to read any of that, so I'll just like say it, you know what I mean? But another thing I found really difficult was the food in there. It sucked, the food in there was the worst thing I've ever had in my entire life. It was you had no nutrition to it. It tasted like cardboard, and you got the same kind of set things every week. So like I started to figure out, kind of the menu in my head of like what's gonna be coming, on Tuesday. I'm like, okay, Tuesday spaghetti meatballs, I like that one. And then like the next day might be like mashed potatoes and like a meat patty, but the mashed potatoes were like neon green, and like they were like those soupy, and like it was like the most disgusting thing ever. They looked like Ghostbusters just like threw them into the mashed potato plate, and it was really traumatizing. And another thing is I'm allergic to peanut butter, right? So should I talk about that? Okay, so I'm allergic to peanut butter, right? And every Tuesday and Friday was peanut butter tray day for lunch, So when I went in there, they asked you if you have any allergies or anything like that. But for some reason, they would always give me every Tuesday and Friday a peanut butter tray for lunch. And every time I would tell them, I'm allergic, I can't eat this, they would refuse to give me another tray. So I would go starving until dinner, basically. So I would eat breakfast, which is at 4 a.m. So breakfast every day is at 4 a.m. They wake you up. Yep, 4 a.m. is breakfast, and they wake you up for that, and it's horrible. And then at 7, you have to get up for count. So that's your first count. So they wake you up for count. Then you can like go back to bed or whatever you want to do basically, but you can't leave your rack because the floor is not open that early. The floor opens at like 10, so get up, do your thing. Lunch is at 12, and then dinner's at 7. And you have another count at around 2 or 4, depending on what the shift is of the CO, and then you have another count at 11 at night. So basically, you don't really get a lot of time to sleep when you're in there, because you either have to eat because you're going to miss your meal, or you're being counted, and you have to get out of your rack. You have to take your sweatshirt off. You can't wear a sweatshirt during count. Just your regular jail uniform.
Yeah. And
so you basically get like 0 sleep. That's another thing that was really hard, is sleeping in there. You never know when something's going to happen. The stuff I witnessed in there, I'm not going to say a lot of it on here because we'd probably get bananaed. Like it was absolutely wild. Some of the stuff I witnessed, it was traumatizing. So just watching your back in there and kind of creating a situation for yourself,
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask too, is like when situations did arise or it was uncomfortable, what could you do? Like, were you able to just go to your room, or like, could you move to a different area? Like, what was it like when you had to kind of distance yourself from something else that was going on with somebody else,
Yeah. When there was something like a situation happening, or like going on, you can't really go anywhere because you're in a basically a 50 by 50 room or however big it was. It wasn't that big with 80 dudes. So if something popped off or someone popped off a rise, you can just walk. You can only just walk to the other side of the room and hope that you don't get some type of implication on you or involved into it. It wasn't like cells. There wasn't really like you just can go in your cell with your cellmate and like everything's cool and. You have to kind of just deal with if someone messes up, then it's kind of like everyone messes up. It's kind of like school, but like with like really bad people, it was a really scary high alert pod that I was in. So there was really scary people in there. So you can't really remove yourself or have alone time.
Yeah, and I remember you said, like it was really traumatizing when you got pulled up or when you got picked up. Was it like a complete surprise? You had no idea and you were just like, whoa, what's going on? Or did you kind of know like something was going on, or what did it feel like in that moment?
Yeah, it was really shocking for me. It was really surprising. I really had no idea what was going on at all. I got picked up in a really scary location of Miami, and I thought I was being attacked by a gang basically because I didn't know what was going on. There was nothing really to indicate that was what was happening. There was no lights on the cars they were undercover cars. They crashed into my friend's car, basically from all angles, and had AR-15s pointed at my face, so it was really traumatizing and scary, and something that I would never want anyone to go through or anyone else to go through in their lives. I had my dog with me. He's traumatized too.
God, that's so scary. Even just hearing that, I like imagining it in my brain, I would probably shit myself. Like, what the is going on? Like, especially if you have no idea and you're just sitting there like, that's scary. So holy crap. Like, I'm super sorry that happened to you. Everything, I hate to say it, but everything happens for a reason. Everything can be turned into something positive, and everything can be turned into a push for better for yourself. Like this can be a situation where you're like, I never, ever, ever want to experience that ever again. So I'm gonna make sure I do what I got to do to be out of those situations, period. So I think from how you speak and from how you talk, I know that's exactly what you're thinking too. Like, I don't ever expect to hear this again. You feel me?
I was just going to the store and then boom, I got attacked basically, out of nowhere, and it was really scary because I never thought something like that would ever happen to me in my life. I was just going to the 7-Eleven, to get I don't even know what I was getting, honestly. I can't even remember because that's how traumatized I am, so you just never know. But one thing that I've learned from especially that situation and the whole situation is, God closes doors for you when he knows you're not going to close them yourself. I made a TikTok about this, and I'm going to say it again because I think it's really powerful. He knows you're not going to close it, and he's like, dude, like, he cuts it off for you because he knows you're not going to do it yourself. So I think that's kind of my situation, and everything does happen for a reason. And if you just trust in God, he's really going to help you out.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so what is one thing that you can really say you're going to take from this entire situation that's going to shape the rest of how you move? Like for the rest of your time, for the rest of what you want to accomplish, what can you take from this situation that is really going to shape all your next movements?
Probably, honestly, something that I'm going to take from the situation that's going to shape my next movements is probably the whole situation in general. There was people in there that want to go back in. They brag about liking to be inside of there. They talk about liking, it's a status, a social status for them in there. And it really kind of, opened my eyes to a lot of things that, people out here don't want greater good, or they don't want the good for themselves. They just want to be, part of the system always, or even if they were put in there and they weren't supposed to be put in there, kind of like me, like I wasn't supposed to, I know I wasn't supposed to be put in there, I was put in there for no reason. Over a made-up story, so a lot of people want to be put in there, and that's not how you should live your life. You should be wanting greater for yourself and always kind of pushing that boundary. So something I can definitely take away is that I'm gonna work harder for myself, and focus on myself instead of trying to like focus on what other people are trying to focus on around them. Like I had these people that I met in there that actually they were transfers from Broward County, so they actually knew Wyatt, and they told me, and I found this out like a couple of weeks after being in there. You know, they told me they knew Wyatt, and they hung out with him a few times, and they told me that you know, he's getting close to, I don't know if you know YMW Nelly, but he's in there. He's in there, and he told me that Wyatt's kind of getting close to him and stuff like that. And like I was like, oh, that's interesting, you know. So, but they were telling me how they want to stay in the system. They want to kind of flip flop in between these two places. So I was like, that's not cool. Like, how can you live your life, you know, constantly being inside the system, you know? So that is definitely something I don't want to be part of at all.
And I've heard that before. I mean, I